Good morning, Dr. Lawrence Roybal. Always the first up for Cafecito con Colon. He never lets me down. We've got a different version, still Mariachi Vargas, but this is their more upbeat, higher, faster tempo of Café Colon, which we play every day on Cafecito con Colon. But this is an older version, I think, of theirs.
It is.
Mariachi Vargas. It is a fabulous Friday. Good morning, Dallas. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back on this fabulous, fabulous 26th day of March. Friday morning, TGIF. All right. Good morning, Representative Patricia Roybal Caballero. Bienvenidos.
Gracias, buenos días, estimado. ¿Cómo están todos?
Bien, gracias a Dios. Gracias por venir. Good morning. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood right here in the land of enchantment, the Tierra del Encanto, the 47 star on that beautiful flag of the United States of America. Welcome to Cafecito con Colon as we spotlight, highlight, and shine a bright, positive light on the fantastic folks who have stepped up to say they want to fill the vacancy that was created by our trailblazing Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland. And we've got a great one for you today. We've got the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero, who is currently serving in our fantastic House of Representatives. She's part of that body of 112 that volunteer, the last citizen legislature in the country. And we got to change that, folks. But I got to tell you, she has been doing a great job there. She's been reelected several times. We'll talk a little bit about her bio points, but let me just start out by saying, good morning, Doña Patricia.
Buenos días y gracias por tenerme aquí hoy con ustedes.
You got it. Gracias por venir. We're so thrilled you're with us. And I appreciate, I reached out to the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero and said, would you come on Cafecito? And she didn't even ask me when or how or why. She just said, yes, I'll be there. And sure enough, she's here today. She's got her beautiful flag behind her from the United Farm Workers of America, AFL-CIO. We know that there's an incredible legacy behind that banner. We're so grateful that New Mexico is the wonderful home of Dolores Huerta, somebody who Patricia Roybal Caballero has organized with in the past. She's been an incredible advocate for our farm workers, for really laborers all over the country. Patricia Roybal Caballero has stood tall for the working class and working families of our country. And it's just a real honor to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much. And let me just tell you real quickly, this flag is particularly special because it was given to me and when I visited Congress. And I visited as a younger woman, my father's cousin, who is Congressman Edward Roybal. And he understood my history. And of course, we know his history of being a strong labor advocate and social justice advocate in Congress. And so he wanted to give me something when I came, a memento. And so he gave me this flag and he signed it in the back. And I am forever grateful for having that experience as a young woman. And of course, being blessed to have my father being related to the congressman. They're both from the Pecos region of northern New Mexico. In fact, my cousin had their reunion a few years ago. So very happy to mention that. And thank you for recognizing it. It's not just a symbol, it's my life.
I love that. Well, it is a great representation of a life well lived with a lot of miles left on those tires. So you've got a lot of service left in you. You've had a life well lived, and all of that comes back down to that advocacy that you've always done for those who haven't had a seat at the table or a voice in the conversation. And we're grateful for that. And I'm grateful to know you and consider you and the other honorable in your household, both dear friends of mine. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see, let me just let you know, Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero, what I'll do is I'll spend about the next 10 minutes putting up some links of the day, and then we'll come right back to you. Is that all right?
That's great. Thank you. I'm
Awesome.
anxious to see your links. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Let me just start out with some national news. We're going to start out with something that was so painful to watch yesterday. For those of you that watched what was going on in Georgia, it was unbelievable, and I can't imagine it ever happening here in New Mexico. And maybe I'm naive, and maybe I just feel like our elected officials, we all have relationships, and I can never imagine the relationship devolving to what I saw happen in Georgia yesterday. So Governor Kemp in Georgia signed a bill yesterday regarding voting rights, and it was really the removal of voting rights in Georgia. Let me just say it like that, including things so ridiculous as making it a crime to pass out bottles of water at polling sites. You know, we do a good job in New Mexico. I want to thank Secretary of State Maggie Toulouse Oliver, our 33 county clerks that do a phenomenal job delivering elections and making sure that we have access and opportunity to allow our voice to be heard on election day. And in Georgia, election rights and access to voting, it is under attack. And the bill that was signed yesterday was an unconscionable attack on access to the polls. And State Representative Park Cannon, who's a Democrat from Atlanta, she was literally, I don't know if she was arrested per se, but she was hauled off. She went to the bill signing that I guess was at the governor's office there in their, what appears to be their capital. And I think she was arrested. But the exchange, she, I guess, knocked on the door several times. They wouldn't let her in. And then eventually at the state capitol, she was arrested, according to this story here. Here's the AP story on it. The video went viral yesterday and is just, it's heartbreaking to see the pain in the voices of the people that were there with her advocating more access to the polls as opposed to less. And it was really just amazing. I can never imagine a state legislator going to the fourth floor of our roundhouse, knocking on the governor's door to that hallway that sits to the left, and then getting arrested because, you know, a legislator wanted to be present for a bill signing. Obviously, she didn't support the bill, so obviously the governor didn't want her in the room. But I can't imagine the dialogue devolving all the way to an arrest of a sitting member of our legislature. Just unbelievable. And from all accounts, all she did was knock on the door several times. There was no violence threatened. There was, you know, I mean, it's unbelievable. I guess I probably need to move on, but unbelievable. So let me also just show you this other story it's been in the news for a few days, but it's finally moving to the top. Regarding what's going on in the Suez Canal with the maritime traffic jam. There are 200 vessels sitting outside the Suez Canal. And let me just tell you, it's going to start to affect New Mexico families because, you know, 90% of the goods are transported via transport containers, those huge shipping containers that in New Mexico, here in Albuquerque, we now know as places where we put businesses because, you know, we have Green Jeans and a couple other great businesses that have been made out of shipping containers have been turned into restaurant space and retail space here in New Mexico. But you know, we're gonna have our next toilet paper shortage is going to be because of this activity in the Suez Canal and the blockage there. So big story, big news, something you should tune into. Good morning, Danny Bernal Jr., the honorable, phenomenal city councilor from my home county, Valencia County, there in Belen, Mr. Believe in Belen himself, Danny Bernal Jr. Good to see you this morning and appreciate your advocacy. This day in history, I've been trying to do a day in history from the history.com channel, which is awesome. This day in history, March 26, 1979 was the day that Prime Minister Menachem Begin signed the Israel-Egypt peace accord, which ended 30 years of unrest and violence in the region. Of course, Menachem Begin met his end in a very violent way, and lots has happened since then. But Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin, they both got the Nobel Peace Prize around that time, and pretty amazing story and moment in time for that region, the Middle East. That's the day in history for you. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about nationally. Somebody said, hey, you got to put this up, and because we're looking at in the next few days, and maybe the good representative has some insights on this, but we know that in New Mexico, we'll be having a special session that will address the legalization of cannabis, recreational cannabis in New Mexico. We already have it as medical cannabis, but we're looking at the legalization of recreational cannabis in New Mexico. But New York Democrats are taking a big run at legalizing cannabis in New York, and there is the story on that. So you know who sent it, and there's the post. So mission accomplished. We continue to talk about gun violence in America, and here is the conversation piece on the scars that are left for just the survivors, the families, but also some who we wouldn't contemplate, our first responders. And really here, this story takes the position that millions are affected and will develop PTSD by this collective shock and trauma that we have based on these mass shootings, 2 in a week. Just unbelievable. Interesting story there. The other big news, front page of the Albuquerque Journal, this is the CNN piece, but the Supreme Court says New Mexico woman can sue police over excessive force, even though she escaped from officers. And this is all about the use of force continuum. It's about immunity. There is the national coverage. I think I might have pulled, I guess I didn't pull the Albuquerque Journal story, but if you want to see the local coverage on that, you can check out the Albuquerque Journal landing page. Let me give you, as we approach 9:13 here, let me give you a couple of events that are coming up here's some good news. Isotopes, they're rolling out their plan. Thank you, sweetheart. For ticketing coming up. So the clouds are parting. The sun is shining in New Mexico. We've got over 1 million doses of the vaccine in the arms of beautiful New Mexicans. And we are making progress every single day. Thanks to all the people in New Mexico, our first responders, our healthcare providers that have been on the front line for so long and so exposed to danger. We're finally turning the corner, in my opinion. And we are making so much progress in that regard. And I will say, I'm very excited. Next Thursday, I finally got my text. I absolutely was not willing to jump the line. I waited just like every other New Mexican. I finally got the text message. I'm going to get my first vaccine shot. My first vaccination will be on Thursday out at Balloon Fiesta Park. And I'm very excited about that. Here's some good news that I know that the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero, she's going to love this story because she's a great advocate for renewable energy in New Mexico. But Sandia Labs is going to build a solar power testing center in New Mexico. So awesome. $25 million to operate and test a new solar power facility on its campus here in New Mexico, using a concentrated beam of sunlight to heat up sand-like particles. It's just great technology. Awesome lab. $25 million investment there. Bravo. Let me just also, you know that I sent out a risk alert about the overpayments from the Workforce Solutions. There is an article from the Santa Fe Reporter. And also, this is a second story regarding the debt from those unemployment payments. So if that is something that is important to you, please check that out. Let me give you this link here to our New Mexico political report regarding our 13 counties in turquoise, 10 counties in green, and 10 counties in yellow. And if you can add real fast, that's 33 counties, baby. 0 counties in New Mexico are in the red. So we have gone from red up to turquoise in 13 counties, 10 counties to green, and 10 counties to yellow. Let me give you just real quick, it's 9:15. Here are some great things that you want to sign up for. Axios is hosting one of their next Latino event, and it's going to be, you know that last time we did the Russ Contreras, this is the second Russ Contreras one-on-one conversations, and I know that the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero is going to sign up for this. I just know she is. Get a load of this, Honorable Patricia. Guess who's going to be hosted by Axios nationally Tuesday, March 30th I know you're going to be really busy that day, but it's just 30 minutes, 10:30 to 11 o'clock New Mexico time. Guess who they're going to be hosting for a conversation covering the Latino community in the Americas, from voting to political representation. This one here is going to be awesome. It's going to be the Honorable Senator Ben Ray Lujan and your friend, Patricia, your friend, the incredible Dolores Huerta. So that is going to be an awesome, awesome event. I've already signed up for it, so I hope you do too. Good morning, Joseph Valdez and Don Ernesto Martinez. Ernesto Martinez, I got to get with you. Thanks for taking care of my family. Dr. Melina Martinez in Santa Fe, your team is the best. Aleli's got a great smile. Rafael's going to go get his smile brightened up today with his regular cleaning, and I need to get up to see you too. Dr. Martinez, thank you for taking care of my family. You are the best. But there's the link to sign up for Axios. And then the other thing is, I wanted to promote the New Mexico Gay Men's Chorus. Let the sun shine in, baby. That is coming up. Support them. They are doing a great job in this virtual world we're living in. And then I wanted, as I continue to mask up at breakfast this morning, I wore my mask with my Stars of David here as we get ready to enter Passover weekend. I've got my Seder in a box. Thank you to the Chabad House in Santa Fe and Rabbi Beryl from Santa Fe, making sure I was covered there. Let me just also give you an opportunity to sign up for the Santa Fe Jewish Festival. This is going to be a very powerful, powerful documentary called Numbered. And this particular documentary deals with survivors who still have the numbers that were tattooed on their arms as we get ready to have Holocaust Remembrance Day, which, as you know, I always observe. That's April 7th. So April 1st to April 7th, this documentary will be available through the Jewish Film Festival. So you can sign up for that there. And then Yom HaShoah again is on the 7th, Holocaust Memorial Day. And they will also have, thanks to the Santa Fe Jewish Film Festival, they'll also have an event that evening in remembrance of the Holocaust, where I lost family members. So please check that out. On a happier note, before I pivot over to my guest of honor, I'm so sorry, Patricia, my links are running long. This is
No
a decade
problem.
to get it. Thank you for being gracious.
Very important.
Thank you. The New Mexico Philharmonic, on a happy note. Let me end on a happy note before we pivot. A decade together, help us shine. So you got the New Mexico Gay Men's Chorus doing Let the Sun Shine In. And then we have my beloved New Mexico Philharmonic, and they're doing a decade together, Help Us Shine virtual gala on Saturday, April 10th at 6 p.m. So you can register and watch it live. I've got the link there for you, and I am all done with my links. Sorry I ran long. It is 9. Oh my goodness, it's 9:18. Oh my goodness, I owe you 3 extra minutes. You've been so gracious. Let me tell you about the Honorable, my friend, an incredible advocate for New Mexico, Patricia Roybal Caballero of the House of Representatives. She is a state representative. She got first elected almost a decade ago. It seems like yesterday, the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero was saying, I'm going to run for the legislature. I need your help. And let me tell you why. And I've held a special place in my heart ever since then. But that was, oh, you know what? It was a decade ago that you asked me for your help. It was 2011 is when you ran. Right?
It was actually 2012. Eleanor Chavez held the position. And we were going through, remember that redistricting issue. So it was still real unresolved up until then. But it was 2012. It was 20. You were correct.
Almost a decade ago.
Yeah, almost a decade.
Almost a decade. And, you know, she got reelected in 2014, 16, 18, and 20. I mean, let me just tell you, people came at her and she said, she like that. I mean, it was easy. Like this last election, what was it, like a 2-to-1 margin? Like it was like you were almost unopposed the way you brought in those election returns. 2-to-1 margins. Let me just tell you, any incumbent will tell you that even as an incumbent, to get a 2-to-1 margin, that's pretty phenomenal. And I just am so impressed with her ability to communicate with her district and let them see her heart and the power of her work ethic. She gets up in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. She doesn't end till late in the day. She's another 5 o'clocker like me. And she just crushes it. She maximizes the opportunity every day to represent and advocate for the people of New Mexico. Let me just tell you a little bit. She's not just known in New Mexico. That's the thing. She talked to you about her dad's cousin, the Honorable Edward Roybal, who is a legend. Google him if you don't know him, but he's a legend in our Congress and in the history of our Congress in America. But Patricia Roybal Caballero has also got an incredible national footprint. She's the immediate past New Mexico House Democratic Caucus Chair. She's the current national treasurer of the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators, whose executive director is another Boricua, another Puerto Riqueño, and she is there with the NHCSL. She's the immediate past national treasurer of LULAC, the National League of United Latin American Citizens. Big shout out to Jonathan Muniz for recently being elected to Flor y Canto, our New Mexico LULAC. He is the vice president. And we have a terrific president, and I'm blanking on her name. Who's our New Mexico president? She was just elected. Do you know? You've been busy. But we have a wonderful woman leader for LULAC in New Mexico as the president, and Jonathan Muniz is our vice president. This incredible New Mexican is a native, of course. She's a tribal member of Pito Manso Tiwa tribe, Pueblo of San Juan de Guadalupe, and we've got your beautiful bulto there behind you, the Virgen de Guadalupe. The New Mexico Public Education Commission District 1 is her hubby, the Honorable Carlos Caballero. He just finished his term, no?
Yes, he just completed his 4-year terms and no longer. He's no
another
longer
great advocate, another great advocate. In fact, I can't think of another dynamic duo, husband and wife, that served concurrent terms in elected office. I can't think of another one. You're a power couple to the exponential power. Let me see. You have two sons, right?
I'm blessed with 2 sons, Yusef, my 48-year-old son, and Celestino Ishdil, my 33-year-old son, and 2 beautiful grandsons. I have Yusef II, who is 6 years old, and Nasir Philippe, who is 4 years old.
Well, that is beautiful. We should have brought Nasir and Yusef to join you today, because that'll get you extra votes. When you can bring grandchildren to camera, our hearts just melt. So
they live in LA, and they're very dedicated to their class and school hours right now. And I mean, they look forward to their dad setting them up on their little laptops and getting ready, and they sit there like this, and you can't, they will tell you, I'm busy, Nana. I'm busy, Nana.
Well, let me just tell you, it's great to have Nana on Cafecito con Colon today. She's Nana to those 2 beautiful grandchildren. And Yusuf, yes, he's on the West Coast. I think he's a television producer and has a phenomenally distinguished career, as does Celestino. But let's talk a little bit. That's kind of looking to the present with those beautiful grandchildren and your 2 sons. But let's take a step back. Can you help us kind of get a sense? I always talk about how important it is. And one of the reasons I'm doing this with all 8 of the fantastic candidates that we have for Congress to fill the vacancy created by Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland, is because I think it's critically important that we understand the lens that our elected officials look through when they do their work every day. You're an incredible public servant, and you've got a heart of gold, and you're such an incredible advocate. When I think of you, I think of being a voice for labor. I mean, and I hope that's okay. And it doesn't mean to limit you, but I want to be honest and candid and say, when I think of labor advocates, I think of you. When I think of advocates for your community, you're front and center. But tell us a little bit, what's the lens you look through that brought you to this point?
I have to go back always and honor my parents. Both of my parents, my father is from the Cacique line of the Pito Manso Tiwa Indian tribe, Pueblo, San Juan de Guadalupe Pueblo, out of Las Cruces, Doña Ana. And my father was a 3-war veteran. He lied about his age in order to enroll and enlist because his family was incredibly poor. And my mother tells a story of when he was at high school, he was so embarrassed to go to high school because he didn't have shoes. And so he would hang out outside the window of the classroom and my mother would open the window so that he could listen to the class, and then she would make extra sandwiches or whatever she had for food. And they had this loving, adoring relationship since they grew up together in Las Cruces. So she did this for him. And my mother comes from a Spanish Mexican background, and her father and my grandparents were the owners of the first tailor shop in Las Cruces. My grandmother was a seamstress, my grandfather was the tailor. And so the experiences of growing up knowing both sides of the family, and their hard work and their dedication to this country, because my grandparents on my mother's side were immigrants, and their contributions that they made to their communities and to their families were all dedicated to advancing our education and making sure that we followed a walk in life that was in service and made a contribution to others. And my father's life in the military, he was a combat veteran. You know, he was in the 82nd Airborne in World War II. He was part of the Normandy drop. He was in Korea. He was a POW in Korea, and he was one of 3 that escaped the Chinese and survived. And then he went on to serve in Vietnam, 2 tours as a Special Forces Green Beret, volunteered 2 tours, Special Forces Green Beret. So the cacique warrior line, the hardworking, pull yourself up by your bootstrap notion of making a living and hard work on the other side of the family. So these were really strong values that were instilled in us. And so I say that because together with that, and I tell the story that I was also raised by the Sisters of Loreto, as my parents worked hard to be able to pay our tuition. But what my father didn't know was that my mother contributed in the laundry room with the sisters in order to be able to help defray the cost and get us on scholarship. So she cooked for the nuns and she did their laundry. And I worked in the library so that we could help our tuition, because going to Loreto was their ultimate goal. That was what they saw as what would prepare us for life. And I will tell you that I came up with these Sisters of Loreto during the 60s, and boy, were they rebellious. They didn't want to wear habits. And so I had to witness them going through the movement, the social movement with their mother house.
That was your first exposure to real feminism, right?
That's exactly right. They said, you know, El Paso, Texas, and these hot habits gotta go. And then so their mother house was in Kentucky, and they literally waged a petition, and they organized all of the nuns around all orders and helped petition. But it was also time when Vatican II was unfolding. And so, you know, the Catholic Church was really intent on making sure that Catholics were in tune with the social conditions and economic conditions of the time, and that we had to adapt in order to be able to work and live in these conditions. And those were tumultuous times. But and I will tell you, they won. Their order was allowed to remove habits and put on lay clothes so that they could relate to their communities. And so that was a great victory. And we got to see that. That was organizing, mobilizing, and successful outcomes.
Well, I mean, I think that being able to relate is something you do so well. I added my MALSA pin, the Mexican American Law Student Association. They embraced that logo that's behind you. And this is the Mexican American Law Student Association. I wear this pin in your honor today. I meant to put it on earlier.
Thank you.
And I hope you'll get a chance to take a breath at some point. There are so many people here thanking you for your advocacy on so many bills, everything from the public banking bill to ethics bills, to Paul Sanchez says, thanks for your work on sponsoring SB 230, institutional racism in state agencies. You've done so much legislative work and really been that voice and that advocate. And what I'm hearing was really fascinating because you used an analogy that seems so powerful based on the beginning of the story. You talked about, your dad looking through the window of the schoolyard because he was embarrassed to go in because he didn't have shoes. And then you talked about him pulling himself up from his bootstraps. And when I think of you being an advocate for those individuals who don't even have the resources to have the boots in the first place. And so they say, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. There are a lot of people in our community that are so marginalized, they don't have the bootstraps in the first place. So I just really appreciated that story and the lens that you helped us understand that you look through. And then especially with the women advocates that you were surrounded with as a young lady. What a perfect time for me to just also celebrate New Mexicans. And I suspect if you're not already in this Ring of Honor, someday you will be. But the 2021 MANA Ring of Honors just announced their recipients, and New Mexico has an overrepresentation. Let me tell you, about a quarter of the women being honored this year nationally are from New Mexico, led by Patricia L. Chavez, Senadora Linda Lopez, the Honorable Clara Padilla Andrews, our former Secretary of State, and there are, I think, 2 or 3 others that are all getting put into basically this is the Lifetime Achievement Award for MANA, the Ring of Honors. And so I think about all these incredible women who've inspired you on your journey. Can you speak to maybe who, I'm all into mentorship, and I know that recently you had a plática with the young people, and you've done this even pre-COVID. You've had these little conversations where you've engaged others from what I see as a mentor role. And that's so touching for me because I don't think there's a higher calling than someone allowing you to pour into them as a mentor. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I know you've done a lot of it and people don't know that extra time you've put in, and I want them to know.
It's been part of my life's journey. I was mentored. I was mentored by Dolores Huerta. I was mentored by Cesar Chavez. I was mentored by the great leaders of the civil rights movement on so many levels. And so if I hadn't, Judge Albert Armendariz, who was one of the founders of MALDEF and LULAC, and those were incredible mentors in my life. And so it's been a natural course for me, and it's really been relationships. In fact, I've just built these relationships all along the way. So sometimes I hesitate in even using the terminology mentoring, because what I valued is what these young people and other people along my journey have contributed to the movements that I've been involved in and to my leadership in these movements. We've all done so as a collective. And so what I've done is really look closely at those young people, and each person brings a valuable asset, if you want to call it. They have experiences in growing up. And so I've made it my mission my entire life to bring young people with me wherever I go. And in the district, I specifically have worked with Atrisco Heritage High School and the entire family there. And I've been able to, they've shadowed me throughout my legislative life. And I've been able to get Hispanic scholarships for them. We continue today, have 3 or 4 individuals that are getting their masters, and we're in constant communication. So for me, it's been part of my DNA as an individual, as an activist, an advocate. You cannot be in these positions and live this kind of life if you're not demonstrating, setting example, and bringing everybody with you. And that's been how I have embraced, that's why I have such a close relationship with the Yucca youth, part of the clean energy economy world, and why I have such a close relationship with our dreamers. I went to school with them at UNM, and I've grown up with them here in the district. So, we built all these close relationships. The LULAC youth, we have young adults and youth. they have in running for national treasurer and being part of the national board, they were the strongest proponents. They were the ones raising Patricia Roybal for national treasurer signs and anxious to get, because of my connection with the youth and young adults. I have this special bond, and I've been able to relate to these experiences, and they've been able to see that in me. And so it's been a natural thing. It hasn't been because I've set up a mentoring program or any type of structure. It's just been natural to the relationships as I have continued my work. And I work in the communities with parents in the schools. So at all levels, I've been exposed to very young people and been able to even my son, the two sons. Today, I'm liked on Facebook and social media, and they're talking about, tell Yusef, wow, we saw your mom, she's running for Congress, that's great. And then they dipped in and gave me contributions, and my youngest son's whole network of friends, we used to have them over all the time for their after practice. Carlos and I cooked and cooked and cooked, and they loved our food. So it's always been part of what we've done not just as a family, but what I've done. So it's natural. It's a very natural.
See, folks, mentorship is not something in passing. It's not an afterthought. It's not an add-on. Like the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero, the state representative who is running for Congress, CD1, this Tuesday, March 30th, because the general election, folks, is on June 1st. So mark it on your calendar. We will all be voting for the replacement to fill the vacancy of the 1st Congressional District Representative on June 1st. June 1st. But you talked about it being part of your DNA, and I was hoping we could maybe take a little bit of a dive, because I think that we've talked a lot in this Cafecito con Colon over the last year and a few weeks now about intersectionality. And when I look to you, you are such a beautiful representation of what it is to be New Mexican. I mean, I'm looking over your shoulder there, and I see a cachina that seems to be like a matachina, maybe representation. We've got the Virgen de Guadalupe, we've got the native pottery, and that intersectionality for you is exactly who you are. And I wonder how that informs the advocacy that you do on a daily basis. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, that is exactly what, it's not just informing, it's just who I am is transformed and translated into what I do. It's just, like I said, my DNA. And I've had a vast array of lived experiences. I've worked the hard labor. I've been in a factory working with other women on assembly line clothing. That's, we helped organize the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America at the FARA plant in El Paso. And I was a young woman, soon to be mother. I was pregnant at the time with my first son. I've worked in a chemical plant as a United Steel worker. I've been I've lived the experiences of being a single mom. I've had to struggle, work 2 jobs. I've lived in neighborhoods and industrial pockets because I couldn't afford living anywhere else. And so I was exposed along with all the neighbors to industrial pollutants. And then thanks to my parents and what they instilled in me, and being, these native cultural traditions, as well as my Hispanic, cultural traditions combined, and coming from, being very poor, my parents being very poor, and then working hard. And that just really instilled education. So we pursued our education. I've been, I've mentioned that I got a dual master's at UNM. Finally, my father says, finally, you're already an old woman. He was joking. And he came at 92 years old because he wanted to be there to witness my 2 masters. And he goes, finally.
Will you tell us about the educational journey? I didn't pull that. There's lots of information out there about you. I picked out just a few things, but I didn't talk about your education. People don't realize how incredibly well educated you are. Can you talk about that just for a sec?
Yes, I graduated from the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I still have a lot of family and friends, so I don't want to cry, but my heart goes out to the community in Boulder for their loss. I lived there. My oldest son was born there at Boulder Memorial Hospital. And so that's where I got my BA degree. I started at UTEP and then finished at University of Colorado in Boulder. I then went on to become certified as a community housing and business economic developer, and pursued a career as a CEO and CFO of nonprofit organizations. And that's why my father says it came late in life, because their path for me was, you get your college degree, you pursue your master's and do whatever, you continue on that educational path. But the social conditions of the times had me involved at grassroots level organizing around the civil rights movements. And so that was a very valuable detractor in my life. So I've then came back and pursued it later in life, because we had to take care of our four parents, two sets of parents. They were elderly and ill, and I went back to school so that I could have the flexibility of time. And I went back to UNM, and I have a dual master's in public administration and community and regional planning. And thank God that at that time I was accepted into the doctoral program, that time in American Studies. And because I was one of the founders of Chicano Studies back in 1969 and 70, I assisted and worked with our UNM students and faculty and administrators in pursuing the approval of the master's in Chicano Studies, and now the doctorate. So I was able to transfer, and I am part of the inaugural group for the doctorate in Chicano Studies. And hopefully,
Wow.
after 50
I
plus
didn't know
years,
that.
yes, I finished all my work. I'm preparing for my comp exams, and hopefully I pass and I move on. And hopefully I can hurry up. My father is now in heaven, but I want to accomplish this. I'm doing all this in honor of my parents and what they envision. So I've also am a clinical social worker. I've been a special education teacher, community college instructor, and then as I've been pursuing my master's and PhD at UNM, I've also am a university on the faculty and teach the introduction to Chicano Studies. So that's been how my life has just sort of unfolded. Combination of activism, advocacy, educational attainment, community and economic development, empowering our poor neighborhoods in order to be able to visualize and pursue their communities of how they want to see and live in their community. So it's been a wonderful, vast array of lived experiences that bring me, and with the legislative experience that I've had, actually, I've always responded to the call a la causa, en la causa. And when I was asked to run and consider a run for this congressional district, I was taken aback initially, but I was asked by rank and file across all levels, labor, rank and file in the environmental justice world, rank and file in the racial justice world. And so it's been a calling, and I had a responsibility. And my mother always said, you know how we go back to our mothers y sus dichos.
Sí.
Cuando te hacen la pregunta y te piden que hagas algo, tienes que siempre decir sí.
Sí.
Whenever you're asked to do something, there's a reason for it, and you always answer yes, and then find out and figure out the way to do it later, but always say yes.
So I love that. And our regular Cafecito colleagues, my extrovert therapists that come on every day with me, they know that I try and be a yes and kind of person. So if you come and you ask me, my default position is going to be yes, and what else can I do to be helpful? So I try and be a yes and kind of person. So I'm going to not just try and say, I'm there for whatever it is you're asking for. I'm going to try and figure out a way. And how else can I be helpful? What else can I do to support you on your journey? Because I believe, as Jonathan Muniz put on my coffee cup here, I believe this. This is my expression from the last 20 years of my life. My son can tell you that I've been saying this for 20 years. Your success in life is always directly proportional to the success you help others achieve. And I am so grateful for the journey I've been on. I live a life of gratitude and service. And your success, Representative Roybal Caballero, is directly proportional to that love and that investment you've made in all who have come into your path. Whether it's through mentorship, whether it's all those organizations that are giving you shout outs on my Facebook page now saying that you've carried their legislation, you've been their advocate, you truly are AA. It's activism and advocacy. That is what is at the core of who you are. And as you say, it's in your DNA. And I just love that. I love that. Yeah. You talked a little bit about, was it your grandfather that was a 3-war veteran?
My father.
Your dad.
My father, yes.
I think of you as being so much younger. I'm sorry.
I am.
You'll have to forgive me. I thought it could have been your dad that was a 3-war veteran. I mean, your grandpa that was a 3-war veteran. Let me ask you this, because one of the things we've talked about quite a bit on Cafecito con Colón is well, we've talked a lot about, especially during Women's History Month, about the lived experience of women in America. And specifically, I'd like to, because of that lens you look through with your dad being a 3-war veteran and knowing how much you care about our veterans and our community who steps up to serve in the military, you know, there's the Vanessa Guillen Act regarding women who serve in the military and sexual harassment and sexual violence and them not having an opportunity to be seen and heard in a way that's appropriate. I mean, you know, we've got so many issues to deal with, whether it's the missing Indigenous women in our country and the murdered Indigenous women in our country. But this I Am Vanessa Guillen bill, I think is so important. And I know Crystal watches every day, and she's been such a champion on that legislation. And so I don't ask too many policy questions because I really want to know the person, because I think the policy is critical and everybody can find that on your website. But for me in politics, you've got to know the person, and then you can understand their policies. And then you can be making your choices after both those things have been contemplated. But the one policy I kind of want to talk to you about is really kind of that Vanessa Guillen bill that's being considered in Congress.
You know, and thank you for bringing that up. I've been intent my entire life as a woman, as a strong woman of color, and having been raised to stand and defend my rights in relationship to everything I do. And that means in relationship to the other women, in relationship to working families, in relationship to every intersection of my life as I've crossed it. And part of that has been to struggle against these systems of patriarchy that are so embedded in all of our institutions. And it's these systems that promote inequities and stereotypes and discrimination. And it's these very systems that my whole life has been dedicated to do. But more importantly, in the military, my father would talk about his experiences with the women in the military, and he always talked about how proud he was to serve with the WACs and the waves and in all of the different military. And he actually saw them as the leadership in many ways, and he looked forward to the day. Of course, he grew older and was out of the military. He was a lifer for 33 years. Look forward to the day that had he still been a trainer, because that's what he did. He trained in the special forces. He was a trainer of others. He would have love to have been able to be a trainer of a new woman recruit, because he wanted to really be able to witness the capacity of a woman in combat, because he truly believed that women bring a whole different leadership. If only our systems respected that point of view, if only our institutions saw us for the value that we bring, and not in light of what we cannot do. And we always have to take the perspective of what is it that you can do to improve the overall relationships of where you are. And then what do you bring to the table? Because we all bring something valuable to the table, and we have to honor that. And I'm saddened that the very military structure that's viewed around the world as being the epitome of everything good that we have would set up internal mechanisms that prevent women from having the same equal and protected relationships as the men in the military. And they've had to be in the shadow rather than in the forefront. And actually, my father was saying women should be at the forefront. And he was saying this as an older military guy. They should be at the forefront. And it saddens me that these women did not have the safe places to go, the protected places to go, or did they even feel that they could go and report instances of abuse, instances of sexual harassment, instances of violence in order to protect their lives from being taken. And that saddens me, because this is the very military that my father gave his life on so many fronts to defend and to protect and to elevate. And it's because of the military that he strengthened his 3 daughters to be women that we don't take any abuse. We don't take any form of discrimination. We don't take any type of stereotyping. We stand strong on who we are and what we are and where we come from. And that to me is to the Vanessa Guillens of the world and their families, to the missing Indigenous women and murdered Indigenous women, to everybody that intersects our lives and that lives in the intersectionality of many worlds of identity, many worlds of cultural tradition, many worlds of gender, many worlds of sexual orientation, because it's not just about gender anymore. It's who and what you choose to say you are at the time that you choose to say you are. And that's what's important. And so we have to honor that. That's what our Constitution is all about. Honoring those differences. We have to elevate our differences in order to respect them. We have to understand why and where our differences come from in order to be able to work in these relationships. But that's the thing. Our systems have forced us to negate those differences, and they've tried to erase our histories in this country, and they've tried to just eradicate these differences to the point where they want to promote everybody, everybody's the same, and we should treat everybody the same. And that's the mistake that this country has done throughout the years. They've tried to treat everybody the same, standardize this, standardize that. And we've been caught into the standardization mode, so much so that we fail to see the Brian Colons of the world and the Patricia Roybal Caballeros of the world against the, or together with the others. It's always been against rather than together with. And these are the systems that I've been fighting to break down, the barriers, the obstructions, all of the ways that we've been told we can't do it. I've been intentional in demonstrating, yes, we can. I've been a CEO and CFO, as I mentioned. I had to sit in a bank room of all white male bankers petitioning why they should approve an $8 million deal for neighborhood revitalization in the poor neighborhood in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Paso. This is a woman of color with the titles, with the education, with the experience of being able to put this deal together, sitting there and being told, no, it can't be done. No, it can't be done. And I took it to the next bank, and I took it to the next bank, and I took it to the next bank, until finally I found a bank that would help leverage the capacity that we had to finance this neighborhood revitalization project. That's the grit, that's the tenacity, that's the perseverance that I was raised to live and do. And that's what I bring to the table in my legislative work. And that's what I take from my legislative and vast array of all the experience I've had in so many different fields, and what I bring to the table for this congressional district. And I think that there's a reason why I was asked to run. There's a reason why people look to me as being able to carry the passion, the compassion. I've legislated with and from compassion. And that's what my constituencies, our communities across the state of New Mexico have seen my ability to do and my capacity to do. And that fight, that fire that I bring, and I'm just dedicated as much as anyone can be, and more so, to be able to break down whenever, all the systems that have prevented us, and break down those cycles of poverty to create cycles of opportunity. That's why I pursued what I pursued, and why my parents were so intent on us seeking education, not to perpetuate existing systems of exclusion, but to perpetuate ways in which we could create opportunity in order to improve everybody else. Because when we improve one, we improve all. And that's why I love LULAC's motto. LULAC stands for all for one for all. All for one and one for all. Think about it. That's an incredible founding way of dedicating your life in service to others. All for one for all. And there's a reason why I've been active in elevating that on the national level, from the community-based level all the way to the national level. Because if we could just live our lives all for one and one for all, and we do so collectively with compassion, and we ask ourselves, if this is what we want in our life, wouldn't that neighbor want it in their life as well? If how you envision your life is how you should be dedicating yourself to help others envision their lives. So that's why, in order to be able for me to move, from one road and one area, people ask me, why do you work for free? I don't consider the money. Right now, I don't consider the fundraising as a priority. What I consider is being able to connect myself, continue to connect myself in the work that I do, and on behalf of everyone. So money's not the motivator. That certainly never has been the motivator. The only legacy I'm going to leave my children and grandchildren is the legacy of who I've been, why I've been, what I've been, and that's it. Because I'm not independently wealthy, nor did I ever aspire to be. That wasn't my goal in life. I don't have a retirement You know, that's just not what motivated my life. And it's all been about trying to transform and trying to and transformation and transforming is really what this is all about. We have to change the way we've been doing things, because the way we've been doing things have excluded, have been disenfranchising, have been hurtful, have created hate and divisions and systems that have excluded rather than systems that have embraced and been welcoming. So it's all about raising everybody up.
Well, raising up. Let's talk
Collectively.
about that. We're gonna wrap things up. Representative Patricia Roybal Caballero, one of the dynamic and incredible candidates for Congress, who on March 30th will face the State Central Committee for the nomination, and then on June 1st, this district will take its vote to see who they're going to send from the 1st Congressional District to represent us in Washington, D.C. And I just want to say the lens you look through is a beautiful lens of service, of advocacy, and activism. And when you talk about lifting up, I love what you said about elevating the differences in order to respect them. We must elevate the differences in order to respect them. I thought that was a very, very powerful thing you said. And then giving people an opportunity to go from poverty to opportunity, an opportunity to go from poverty to that opportunity. And I think that that's just awesome to give those folks a chance to get from that poverty to opportunity in New Mexico, our land of enchantment, where Patricia Roybal Caballero elevates the differences in order to respect them and be their advocate and activist. And I couldn't be more pleased and proud to be able to consider the Honorable Carlos and the Honorable Patricia my friends.
Thank you. We've told you since we met you. We've loved you since day one. We've believed in you, estimado. When others were saying, no, it's not that time. No, it's not the time. We said, hey, whoever sets the time, now is the time. And if we don't take that time now, and you've done it every single time we've been there with you, and that's so very important, because that's the whole message. We have to be bold, and we have to take the time now, because my grandchildren don't have time to wait for me to make a difference in climate change. My grandchildren don't have time for me to wait to make a difference in educational closing the gaps. And they don't have the time for me to wait to fight against and break down the racism in our institutions. There's just no time. We have to take the moment, estimado, and we have to run with it, and we have to answer the call, and we have to view everything as being in la causa, in the name of la causa. And the causa is always, because as long as there's poverty, as long as there's discrimination, as long as there's racism, as long as there's division, there's a causa, and we have to embrace that and move collectively.
That's right. And you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen, this incredible, incredible native New Mexican who is stepping up to lead for la causa. And also, just like our representative from the 3rd Congressional District, where she said every day on the campaign trail, ahora es cuando, ahora es cuando. And as the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero, a distinguished representative for nearly a decade in our House of Representatives, is now looking to serve us in Congress. And we're so grateful that she's always willing to say yes.
And adelante, adelante, y sí se puede.
Adelante, y sí se puede. Gracias por venir. Tenga un buen fin de semana. We look forward to having you again on Cafecito con Colón in the future.
Gracias a todos, y a usted, estimado, gracias. Me dio mucho gusto estar aquí con todos ustedes. Gracias.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Thank you for joining us on Cafecito con Colón. It's been great to host the Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero, candidate for the 1st Congressional District, incredible activist and advocate. She's been representing her district for nearly a decade, right there in the land of enchantment, our Tierra del Encanto, and she does a great job of it. So we're glad she said yes and she'd be willing to come back again. So we'll see you soon, Patricia Roybal Caballero. Have a great Friday on this fabulous Friday. And let me just tell you, get out there and make a difference in your community. Reach out to our veteranos, our elders. Tell them that they may be in isolation, but they're not alone. You met the daughter of a 3-war veteran today, an incredible woman, Patricia Roybal Caballero. Give her a look. Tomorrow, we'll be joined again by another member of our legislature. Tomorrow, we'll have Georgine Lewis, the Honorable Georgine Lewis, with us tomorrow on Cafecito con Colon. So come back. I'll be here. You be here too. Don't miss it. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye, Honorable Patricia Roybal Caballero. Tell Don Carlos we send our love.
He's saying hello and waving, saying his love.
All right, the Honorable Carlos Caballero with the Honorable.
And all the Caballero family, wherever they are, and everybody. Thank you.
That's
Thank
right.
you, estimado.
Bueno, bye-bye now.